Well, hi there. It's June 17th, Journal 82, which means it has to be T plus 76, 24 more days till we reach 100. Uh, and no one's more excited than I am, except about one thing that just happened that was fascinating. In automotive, when the vehicle is working properly, especially computerized vehicles, um, and the computer is communicating with the sensors and actuators on the vehicle. We call that closed loop bidirectional communication. And I always invite the equivalent of that when it comes to the blogs and the columns that I write. I always get really excited when there's closed loop participation, bidirectional communication. And three actually of our listeners went ahead and reminded me of a column that I had written years ago uh, for a different publishing company, actually. I was working for them entitled Count Your Marbles. Now, you may or may not be familiar with this, but it's an old parable. It's an old story. I was first exposed to it many years ago, um, and it had a profound impact on my thought process and beliefs and values and those kinds of things. And the parable was really interesting to me, and it kind of went like this. Uh, an older gentleman, older at the time, 20 years younger than I am now, um, realized that there was only so much time that we had, and like 3,900 weeks, weekends, Saturdays in in an average life expectancy of 75 years. He realized this when he was in his 50s, and he figured that he had 20 years left or so, and he calculated that to be 1,000 marbles. And he went to every toy store in town that he could find and bought all the marbles he could gather until he had 1,000, and he put them all in a jar. And every week on Saturday, he would take out a marble and throw it away. And he would contemplate at that particular moment whether it was a good week, a profitable week, a I don't know, a satisfying week, uh, a week of accomplishment, a week spent with family and friends, a week involved in important things, not necessarily just urgent things. Uh, Understanding Eisenhower's box. Uh, when I read that, or I heard that the first time, I read it actually, uh, the first time, I really got to thinking about Saturdays and what the parable was trying to tell us, and basically that was, don't waste any of the precious time we have because we don't know how much we have. It was really significant to me then, and I wrote a column about it because many small business owners, especially independent repair shop owners, wind up sacrificing their personal time, uh, time that could have been spent with family and friends, doing the important things in life that are meaningful and rewarding, and they don't. They in too many instances they try to support a business that's not reciprocating. So I started to go ahead and do the same thing. I started to go ahead and fill my imaginary jar with marbles and each week I would try and figure out whether I had done well, whether it was meaningful, and recognize that in this virtual jar of marbles, the number of marbles kept diminishing by one a week, and the level of the jar kept getting lower and lower. And it worked for me. It really did. It helped me to go ahead and focus on the things that are meaningful and important, on family and on friends and on traveling and on doing the things that make living worthwhile. And now I'm 72 years old, 3 years away from the 75 that was calculated in the story. But the thing that happened to me that was even more fascinating, in many respects, was that somebody tried to steal my jar. And I fear that there are too many people like me who have found the number of their Saturdays arbitrarily cut short. And I know how that made me feel, how it helped me to focus all of my energy and all of my resources, personal resources, on getting better and doing whatever was necessary to get better. But I also recognize that there are a lot of people that don't react that way. And perhaps this message is meant to flow from me through you to someone you know who might be in that situation where they're somebody's arbitrarily decided to empty their jar of marbles, whether by illness or some other, or by accident. In my case, I really know what that felt like. I know I felt like I was being cheated. I know that I knew I had lots of good years left. And unlike my dad, who was told by the doctors that he would get guaranteed 5 more years of quality living, instead of the MRSA, the methicillin Staphylococcus aureus, MSR, a hospital-borne infection he got instead, which ended his life within a year. I knew that I at least I sensed that I had more to accomplish, more to do on my to-do list. And all of a sudden, somebody was telling me that we're going to take handfuls of marbles out of the jar and toss them because you're not going to have that kind of time. And I know how I reacted to it. And what I've seen and what I've experienced from this whole process of being diagnosed, recognizing that you're ill, symptomizing, getting some relief from a magical medication that, by the way, sells for over $12,500 a month, retail, depending on your deductible, $2,700 a month through your deductible, unless you go online and find some way to mitigate that somehow. And recognizing your own mortality, and then doing everything that you can to fight back and try and regain your life. It's important that we recognize that there are only so many marbles in that jar for all of us, for any of us. And we've got to understand how important each one of those marbles is, and what each marble signifies in the course of. I guess I'm sharing the story with you because I think it's really important that you recognize that and that you respond to it, and that you realize that Work is important professionally. It's important to be at the top of your game. It's critical to put everything that you have into your career, but not at the expense of the lives you've um, committed to sharing with your partners, your kids, whoever that whoever that entails, and that there are some things that are transcendent. I know when I was writing, a friend of mine suggested that I tell the kids that when the door to my office was closed, Daddy was at work. But I also told them that if there was anything that was really, really important, they could knock on the door, and then whatever it was they needed to share or whatever it was we needed to talk about, I would take care of. I remember always working. My kids remember that I was always available, uh, and that's magical. And that's that's what marbles I think are all about. So um, wherever you are in life, however old you are in life, figure out how many marbles you got in the jar. Take one out every week, every Saturday or Sunday or whatever day you choose, and throw it away. Watch the number of marbles diminish. Watch the level of the jar go down. Recognize that everybody's life is finite. And if you're fortunate enough to get to run out of marbles, then realize that every single day after that is a gift. Every day beyond average mortality is a gift, a blessing, and a responsibility. Um, and I know that's heavy, and I know there's a lot of stuff to think about, but I never promised you this journey would be easy. So stay well, take care, and count your marbles.